Jake Turner was just a simple cargo pilot. He wasn't a soldier, not a hero, not even very brave. He liked quiet flights, empty space, and no surprises. But today, something was wrong from the start. His ship, the Lucky Star, was docked at Outpost Theta 7, a shady alien trading station on the edge of the galaxy. He was loading crates of food rations when the control panel beeped. A new passenger had requested emergency transport. Jake frowned. He didn't take passengers, especially not surprise ones. He tapped the come button. No seats left. Sorry, he said, trying to sound official. A voice growled back, deep and strong. I don't need a seat, human. Just lift off when I say so. Before Jake could answer, the cargo door slammed open. A tall, muscular figure walked in, her footsteps heavy, her presence even heavier. She was nearly 7 feet tall, covered in thick fur with glowing yellow eyes. She looked part Volf, part woman, and all trouble. Jake stepped back, heart racing. Wait, you can't just... She growled again, then marched past the cargo. Up to the cockpit, without asking, she sat down right on his lap. Jake froze, stunned. What are you doing? He shouted, This is my ship, that's my lap. She didn't even look at him. For balance, she said calmly, adjusting herself as if she belonged there. This model of ship is poorly designed. Weight must be centered during rapid launch. Jake blinked, confused and slightly crushed under her weight. Can't you sit on a crate or something? No, she said. This position is efficient. She smelled like wet fur and smoke, her muscles heavy and solid like stone. Jake tried to push her off, but it was like trying to move a mountain. He gave up and sighed. Fine, but I'm reporting. This is station control. No time, she said. Launch now, we are being hunted. Hunted? Jake repeated, but it was too late. The radar blinked red, multiple ships approaching fast. Enemy fighters, moving in tight formation, locked onto his coordinates. Jake didn't wait. He hit the thrusters and the Lucky Star roared to life as the ship lifted off. Alarms blared and lights flashed. The beast woman held the controls steady, with Jake still beneath her. He couldn't believe what was happening. Who are you? He asked, shouting over the engine noise. I am Captain Rokara of the Beast Clans, she said with pride. My enemies seek to stop me from returning home. Well, they're doing a great job. Jake yelled as a missile flew past the hull. Rokara didn't flinch. She reached forward and tapped buttons like she'd flown the ship 1,000 times. The engines twisted, the ship spun, and they dodged another shot. Jake was impressed and very uncomfortable. His legs were going numb. His pride had already vanished. I'm not your co-pilot, he muttered. She turned her head slightly. You are now, she said, her voice calm and serious. Outside, the stars blurred as they entered hyperspace. The enemy ships vanished behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Jake let out a long breath. They were safe for now. Okay, he said finally. We're in hyperspace. Can you please get off me now? Rokara looked at him, her eyes narrowed. No, she said. Not until destination is reached. You can't just sit here the whole flight. I can, she said, and I will. Jake buried his face in his hands. He was trapped under a beast woman captain who refused to move. His peaceful day was gone, and yet, deep down, he knew something bigger was happening. This wasn't just bad luck. This was the beginning of something dangerous, something strange, and somehow, he was now part of it. The ship's computer beeped again. Jake looked up. A new signal was detected. Coded message from deep space. Rokara sat up straighter. It begins, she said with a grin. Jake didn't like the sound of that, not one bit. Asterisk. Jake woke up to find a clawed hand on his face. Not a gentle touch, more like a firm grip. He groaned, eyes half open, head tilted awkwardly. Rokara was still sitting in his lap, snoring softly, her heavy body pressing him into the pilot seat. The ship hummed quietly in hyperspace, stars swirling outside like rivers of light. Jake tried to move her arm, but it didn't budge. He sighed, then whispered, Why me? Just then, The ship's alarm shrieked beep beep. Jake jumped, but Rokara stayed asleep. Seriously? He muttered, "You're snoring through an attack warning?" He tapped the screen. Unknown crafts detected, dropping out of warp. The red blips were back. Enemy ships had followed them into the void. He had no idea how. Rokara's eyes opened instantly, pupils narrowing like a predator. "They found us," she said calmly. "They should not be able to follow through." "Hyperspace," Jake blinked. "Wait, are you surprised too?" She nodded slowly. "Someone ... Someone is helping them." Before he could ask who, the ship shuddered hard, like it hit a wall in space. The nav system blinked off for half a second. Someone jammed them. Jake's hands flew across the panel, trying to steer. Rokara didn't move, but began typing a code into the auxiliary screen. "I'm flying this thing." "You know," Jake said, sweating, "I need full controls, and also maybe not a whole person sitting on me during combat." She didn't answer. Instead, she gripped the side rail and leaned her weight into a turn. The ship spun violently, barely dodging a plasma shot from the enemy. Jake yelled, "Are you steering with your body weight?" "Yes," she said. "Basic warrior flight technique," he muttered. "That's not a thing." More enemy ships locked onto them, forming a triangle formation around the lucky star. Rokara grinned, baring sharp white teeth. "They want to capture us," she said. "They're not firing to kill." Jake wasn't sure whether that was good or bad. "What do they want?" he asked, twisting the controls. "You, me, or the ship?" Rokara answered, "Me," then paused. Maybe you too," Jake gulped. "Great. I always wanted to be a space hostage." Then something strange happened. One of the enemy ships sent a direct message, on screen. A strange symbol appeared, a broken moon over a burning claw. Rokara hissed under her breath. "The mark of Vashur," she said. "Exiled beastborn." Jake had no idea what that meant, but the tone in her voice felt like thunder. The enemy leader appeared on screen, a tall beastman with silver fur, golden armor, and glowing red eyes. "Rokara," he said with a snarl, "you run with a human now?" Jake leaned forward. "Hey, I'm not running anywhere. She's the one sitting on me." The enemy ignored him. "You abandoned your clan. Now you run like prey." Rokara leaned toward the screen. "Better prey than poison," she said. "Vashur was banished for betrayal. Your words mean nothing," Jake whispered. "Okay. So this is a family thing." Rokara stood slightly, not fully, just enough to shift weight. Jake could finally breathe. She turned her body, reached into a hidden panel, and pulled out something strange. A long metal tube with claws and wires. "What's that?" Jake asked. "A signal spike," she replied. "I'm calling for help." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Wait, you could have called for help before all this." "I only call when blood must follow," she said darkly. She slammed the spike into the ship's control board, sending a shockwave through the console. Suddenly, a pulse beacon shot from the ship into space. Within seconds, the enemy ships broke formation, backing off like they were afraid. Jake stared at the screen. "What did you just call?" Rokara sat down in his lap again. He groaned. "I called the hunt. Now they will come." "Who?" Jake asked, nervous. "Who's they?" Rokara looked ahead with a steady gaze. "My kin. Those still loyal. Those who follow." "The old code." Jake slumped in the seat. "Great. More beast people. Maybe they'll all take turns sitting on me." Suddenly, a new blip appeared on radar, large, fast, heading straight toward them. Rokara's eyes lit up. "That's them," she whispered. "That is the Fang ship." Jake didn't like the sound of it, but deep inside, he felt a strange pull, like this was no longer just her fight. This was becoming his too, whether he liked it or not. As the screen glowed with the incoming ally ship, Jake looked up and said, "Next time I fly solo." Rokara smiled slightly. "There won't be a next time, human. Not after this." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" She didn't answer. The Fang ship arrived, casting a giant shadow over the lucky star. The hunt had begun. The ship caught fire while Jake was still trying to adjust his seat. He wasn't even flying. Rokara had one hand on the controls, and the other gripping the side panel like a beast ready to pounce. Smoke filled the cockpit, alarms screamed. And Jake said the only words that made sense. "This is why I don't give rides to strangers." The Fang ship that came to help them had opened fire. Not on the enemies on them. Betrayed. Again, Rokara had expected loyalty, but found a missile instead. "Brace!" She shouted. Jake didn't have time to ask for what. The ship jerked, spun, and plummeted from hyperspace into a thick blue planet's orbit. Jake's stomach flipped, and then everything went black. He woke up to the sound of birds, real birds, chirping softly through broken glass and twisted metal. The Lucky Star had crash-landed in the dense jungle, its hull split open, wires hanging like jungle vines. Jake sat up slowly, rubbing his head. His pilot seat was half buried in mud, and Rokara, of course, was still on top of him, unconscious but breathing. "Why do you always land on me?" Jake groaned. He nudged her shoulder. She growled, opened one eye, then stood up without a word. Jake collapsed into the dirt. Grateful to breathe again, around them, the jungle moved. Strange shapes shifted in the leaves, tall plants, glowing. Insects and shadows that felt like they watched. "This place feels alive," Jake said. Looking around nervously, Rokara sniffed the air. "It is," she said. "This moon belongs to the Wildborn. Are they friendly?" Jake asked. "No," she said without emotion. "Not to humans," Jake sighed. "Great. Now I'm the outsider and the prey." The ship was useless, engines fried, comms jammed. Rokara began pulling supplies from the survival locker knives. Rations, a small energy shield. Jake grabbed the med kit and a flashlight. They moved through the jungle, avoiding open spaces. Jake's nerves were stretched thin, every tree creaked like it might attack. Rokara moved like a ghost, silent and sharp. It was clear this was her world. As they walked, Jake asked, "So, about the Fang ship, why did they fire at us?" Rokara didn't answer at first. Then she spoke, voice low. "Someone in the clans fears what I carry." Jake frowned. "You mean weapons?" She shook her head. "No, truth." Before he could press further, Rokara froze. She held up a claw stop. Jake halted, his heart jumping. From the jungle, a deep growl rumbled. Then a pair of yellow eyes opened in the dark. Another beast, taller and broader than Rokara, stepped out. Its armor was cracked, fur matted, and in its hand was a spear that glowed red-hot. "Rokara," it snarled. "You came back." Jake stayed still, barely breathing. Rokara stepped forward. "I came for the truth, Garaneth." Garaneth laughed, a cruel sound. "The clans chose new leaders. Old blood is no longer needed." He turned his gaze toward Jake. "And the human? A pet? Or a weapon?" Jake raised a hand. "Just a pilot, no weapons, no claws, just sarcasm." Garaneth lifted his spear and pointed it toward Jake's chest. "Then he dies first." Rokara moved fast, too fast. She blocked the strike with her forearm. The spear burning into her skin, she roared, spun, and tackled Garaneth into the mud. Claws out, Jake jumped aside, landing hard on his back. He grabbed a fallen branch, not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The two beasts fought like wild storms. Rokara's style was precise and fast, Garaneth's raw and brutal. Jake didn't know who to root for, he just wanted it to end. Finally, Rokara pinned him. One claw at his throat. "Yield," she said. Garaneth growled, then went limp. She stood slowly, bleeding but steady. Jake stepped forward, breathing hard. "Are there more of him around?" Rokara nodded. "Yes, and worse." She looked up at the trees. "The jungle watches us now." Jake turned around slowly. Eyes, dozens of them, stared back from the trees, silent, glowing. The Wildborn were here. Rokara didn't flinch. She pulled Jake close and whispered, "Do not speak, do not run." Jake whispered back, "Any other rules?" She smirked. "Yes, stay close to me, or they'll eat your face." A low howl echoed in the air. The jungle answered, and just like that, Jake knew this moon wasn't just alive, it was hungry. The duel didn't start with weapons, it started with a growl, not from Rokara, not even from the jungle, it came from the ground itself. As if the earth recognized a challenger had returned. Jake stood frozen between two giant trees shaped like twisted claws. The sky above had turned blood orange, shadows stretching longer with each passing minute. He could feel it, deep in his chest. Something old was waking. Rokara stepped forward, claws glinting in the jungle light. Across the stone clearing stood another beast, taller than her, leaner, more Volf than humanoid. His fur was black as oil, his eyes violet and cruel. He grinned the moment he saw her. "Rokara," he said, voice smooth like poison. "I told them you were dead," Jake whispered. "Please don't tell me that's your brother." "No," she replied without looking back. "Worse." The beast circled them slowly, dragging a long spear behind him. "I am Veil Rock, bloodbound of the Hollow Pack," he declared. "Last rightful challenger to the Fang Crown." Jake leaned closer. "To Rokara, do I need to know what the Fang Crown is?" "Yes," she said. "It means power over the clans." "Okay," Jake nodded. "So he wants to be king and you're in his way?" "Correct. Do I get a vote?" "No." Volrock raised his spear and pointed it straight at Jake. "What is this?" he asked. "A mate? A mascot?" Jake sighed. "Just a very unlucky pilot." The jungle crowd behind them snarled in amusement. Dozens of Wildburn had appeared, beasts of all shapes and sizes, watching from the trees and rocks. No one spoke, but their eyes glowed like fire, eager for a show. Veil Rock slammed his spear into the ground. "Challenge!" he shouted. "Bloodproof by right of combat." Rokara stepped forward. "I accept." Jake blinked. "Wait, what are we accepting?" She looked at him, calm but serious. "He challenged my loyalty, so I must fight to prove it." Jake glanced around nervously. "Okay, cool, go kick his tail." Rokara paused, then added, "With my chosen second." Jake stared at her. "No, yes," she said, already dragging him forward by the collar. "He challenged us. I cannot face him alone." Jake looked at the massive spear-wielding beast and whispered, "I don't even have a laser pointer. How do I fight that?" Rokara tossed him a strange metal gauntlet. "Press the red button when I say, 'That's it.'" "That's it," she confirmed. The crowd roared as the circle cleared. Drums, yes. Actual alien drums started pounding from the trees. Veil Rock howled, leaping forward with blinding speed. Rokara met him halfway, claws flashing. Jake stumbled behind, desperately trying not to die. The two beasts clashed with terrifying force. Claws met steel, roars echoed like thunder. Jake ducked and rolled as energy blasts flew past his head. Then Rokara shouted, "Now!" Jake pressed the red button. The gauntlet lit up and sent out a sonic pulse that struck Veil Rock in the chest. He staggered, just for a second, but it was enough. Rokara roared and landed a spinning strike that sent him crashing into a tree. Silence fell over the clearing. Veil Rock tried to rise, blood dripping from his mouth. But Rokara placed a claw to his throat. "Yield," she said. He hesitated, then growled and dropped his weapon. The crowd howled. Some in support, some in anger. Rokara turned, breathing heavily. Jake walked over slowly, clutching his arm. "Did we win?" "We did," she said. "But this is not the end." Veil Rock glared at them from the dirt. "They will come for you," he spat. "You broke the old path." Rokara leaned closer. "Then I will make a new one." As the crowd slowly disappeared into the jungle, Jake leaned against a rock. His heart still pounded. But he was starting to understand something. This wasn't just about space politics. This was about power, tradition, and war. Rokara knelt beside him and handed him water. "You fought well," she said. Jake chuckled weakly. "I pressed a button and nearly wet my pants." She nodded. "Still counts." Jake looked up at the alien sky. "Where to now?" She stood. "We find the throne." Jake sighed. "Of course we do." But deep down he did anymore. Something inside him had changed. Maybe it was adrenaline, maybe survival instinct, or maybe, just maybe, he was starting to feel like he belonged. Somewhere behind them, a low mechanical hum began to rise. Not animal, not natural, a ship. Jake stood up fast. Please tell me it's one of ours. Rokari narrowed her eyes. No, she said, it's something worse. The ship didn't land. It hovered silent, shadowed and watching. Jake could feel its presence like a cold hand pressed against his chest. No lights, no symbols, just a dark metal giant above the treetops. It wasn't beast-born tech, not tribal, not natural. This was something else. Rokara didn't blink. That's not one of ours, she whispered. Jake nodded slowly. I figured. Spaceships usually say hello before creeping on people. The ship stayed silent for a moment, then slowly drifted away, deeper into the jungle, not fleeing, inviting, almost like it wanted them to follow. Rokara growled, low and unsure. Jake looked at her, surprised. That scared you, he said. I've never seen you hesitate before. She didn't answer, just started walking. Jake followed, more curious than brave. They pushed deeper into the jungle until they reached an ancient ruined stone towers, covered in moss and claw marks. The ship hovered above the center like a god watching a forgotten temple. At the heart of the ruins was something strange. A smooth metal door built into the ground, with human writing on it. Jake froze. Wait, that's English, he whispered. USSC-07, Research Outpost, authorized access only. Rokara looked confused. Your people were here before? Jake stepped closer, brushing away vines. This is military, he said. Deep science stuff, genetics, AI, alien interface projects. He pressed a button beside the door. It scanned his face, beeped once, and opened with a hiss. Inside was darkness and dust. Rokara followed him down the stairs, silent and tense. As they reached the first chamber, lights flickered on, dim, flickering, still alive after years of silence. Screens buzzed, old data streams blinking. Then, a voice crackled from the wall, distorted but familiar. Subject: Rokara Phase 7 mutation, stable. Observation: mixed success. Enhanced cognitive alignment. Rokara stopped moving. Her breath caught in her throat. Jake turned to her slowly. Ro, he said softly, what is this? She stared at the screen like it had punched her. I don't know, she whispered, but Jake could see the truth in her eyes. She did. A second video loaded, grainy, time-stamped years ago. On screen, a group of humans in lab coats spoke excitedly. Behind them was a large cage, inside it a young Rokara, chained and unconscious. Jake backed away, heart pounding. You were part of this, he said. Part of a human experiment. Rokara nodded slowly. I was born to the beast clans, but taken when I was small. They said I was special, she added, voice distant. They changed me. Jake stared at the walls, dozens of photos, test logs, DNA charts, human scientists trying to create a perfect bridge between beast and man. HFY wasn't just pride anymore, it was guilt. They made you smarter, he whispered. Faster, stronger, and angrier, Rokara added. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light, not with rage but sadness. Jake clenched his fists. No wonder they're after you. You're proof, he said. Proof that humanity used your people. Suddenly, the screen flashed. New signal detected. The dark ship outside had activated something. A voice, cold and robotic, spoke through the base's speakers. Asset 07 detected. Termination protocol authorized, Jake shouted. We need to leave now. Rokara didn't move. She stared at her younger self in the old footage, then whispered, They erased everything. But I remember now. Jake grabbed her wrist. Remember later, survive now. They raced back up the stairs, light shaking, alarms ringing. Outside, drones had begun landing, black machines with glowing red eyes. Armed and scanning, Rokara tackled one mid-air, smashing it into pieces. Jake ducked behind a tree and threw a broken control panel like a frisbee, somehow hitting another drone. Even he was surprised. "Nice shot, me," he muttered. Rokara grabbed his arm. "We need a signal beacon," she said. "There's one left on the ancient tower near the river." Jake nodded. "Let's get there fast before your old science fans blow us up." They ran through the jungle as night fell. Chased by red lights and memories, Jake didn't ask more questions. He knew the answers would hurt, and Rokara didn't explain. Her silence said enough. But something had changed between them. This wasn't just a beast and a pilot anymore. They were both parts of a secret buried by time. Both born in different worlds, but broken by the same hands. And the ones who broke them were coming back. Palace wasn't made of stone. It was made of bones tall. Sharp ribs arched across the sky like white spears. Massive skulls lined the gates, some alien, some possibly human. This was not just a home. It was a warning. Jake stared up from the hillside, wind pushing at his jacket. "Palace?" he muttered. "Looks more like a war crime." Rokara stood beside him, her fur ruffling in the wind. "This is the seat of Claw," she said. "Every ruler of the beast clans builds it with the remains of their enemies." Jake didn't respond. He was trying not to throw up below. The Bone Palace was surrounded by guards, huge beast warriors in golden armor, each carrying weapons powered by both alien tech and tribal energy. Flying drones circled above, scanning the horizon. "We go through the west tunnel," Rokara said. "It leads under the throne room." Jake narrowed his eyes. "And then what?" "We knock politely?" "No," she replied. "We burn their lies to the ground." They moved quickly through the jungle, keeping low, using the dense vines as cover. Rokara led the way, her eyes sharp, her body low and focused. Jake followed, every step heavier than the last. He wasn't trained for this, not war, not sneaking into palaces, not rebellion. But something inside him had changed. Not just because of Rokara, not just because of what the labs had done, but because he'd seen the truth. Human hands had helped build this place, then abandoned it. The tunnel was narrow and wet, carved through old rock and fossil. It stank of mold and rusted history. Jake crawled behind her, flashlight dim. "This better not lead to a prison cell," he whispered. Rokara chuckled. "If it does, we break out again." At the end of the tunnel, a ladder rose into darkness. Rokara climbed first. Slowly, Jake followed, heartbeat loud in his ears. They reached a metal grate. Beyond it, the throne room. Jake peeked through the cracks. A massive hall of ivory and fire. The Beast King sat on a throne made from melted weapons, draped in a cloak of metal wires and bones. Jake's breath caught in his throat, because the Beast King was human, old, scarred, but definitely human, sitting among beast generals like a master among pets. Rokara's claws dug into the wall. "Thorn," she hissed. "General Marcus Thorn." Jake's voice dropped. He was one of the scientists. He didn't leave, he took control. Thorn stood, his voice calm and powerful. "The clans are united under truth," he declared. "We are no longer wild, we are evolved." The beasts roared in agreement. Blind to the chains wrapped in gold, Rokara whispered. He twisted their honor, made them into his army. Jake's fists clenched. "This ends now," Rokara nodded. They pushed the grate aside and dropped down right into the center of the hall. Gasps, growls, weapons raised. Thorn smiled calmly. "Ah," he said. "The rogue and her pet have returned." Rokara stepped forward. "I challenge you," she roared. "By old law, for the right to speak and to strike." The generals hesitated, but Thorn nodded. "Let the right begin." 2 circles formed. Lit by tribal flame, Rokara stepped into one. Jake was pulled into the other. He blinked, confused. "Wait, why am I in a circle?" Thorn chuckled. "You were part of this from the beginning, boy," he said. "Time for you to prove what side you really belong to." Rokara looked at Jake. "You don't have to fight," she said quietly. "But if you do, fight like a human." Jake grinned. I plan to. Two beast warriors charged him. Big, fast, trained. Jake dodged left, ducked, rolled between their legs and grabbed a staff off the wall. Okay, let's try kung fu with zero training. He muttered. He fought with desperation, not skill. Not speed, but pure human instinct and chaos. And it worked. He kicked one into a brazier, tripped the other with the staff, and slammed the button on his gauntlet. The sonic pulse dropped both warriors across the hall. Rokara was fighting Thorn directly. She bled from her shoulder, but never backed down. Thorn was strong, unnaturally strong, his arms enhanced with tech implants. But she had something. Stronger, memory, pain, truth. With a final roar, she drove her claws into his chest. Metal sparked. Bone cracked, Thorn fell, stunned, silence filled the hall. Then slowly, one beast warrior dropped his weapon. Then another, and another. Jake looked around as the tide turned. The throne was broken, the lies exposed, and Rokara stood tall, not just as a warrior, but as the new leader. Outside, dawn was breaking. Jake sat on the palace steps. Covered in bruises, Rokara sat beside him, silent. So, Jake said slowly, what now? She looked at the rising sun. Now, she said, we rebuild the clans. Without kings, Jake nodded. And what about us? Rokara didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back and sat right back down in his lap. Jake groaned. Seriously? For balance, she said with a grin. The stars looked different from the throne. Not brighter, not dimmer dash, just ... Unfamiliar, as if the sky itself had changed the moment. Rokara took command. Jake stood at the edge of the beast palace, looking up at the galaxy. So many lights. So many paths, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure where he was supposed to go. Rokara stood behind him, silent and calm. Her wounds were wrapped, her armor replaced with ceremonial cloth made of claw thread and memory bones. She wasn't just a warrior anymore. She was something more. Something older, something chosen. You're thinking about leaving, she said quietly. Jake nodded without turning. I'm a cargo pilot, he said. Not a symbol. She stepped closer. But you became one, he smiled softly. By accident. She looked at him with sharp yellow eyes. There are no accidents in the wild. Later that night, they boarded the Lucky Star, now repaired with alien tech and tribal markings. The cockpit was quieter than usual. The controls glowed with unfamiliar energy. Part machine, part organic. Jake sat in the pilot seat, hands on the thrusters. Rokara walked in behind him, then, with no hesitation, sat on his lap, again. Jake sighed. Seriously? We're still doing this? For balance, she said calmly. He smiled. Fine, he said. But one day you're gonna have to fly solo. She leaned forward. Not today. As the ship lifted into orbit, a signal pinned from deep space. Encrypted, layered in human code. Jake tapped the screen, and a message unfolded. USSC Commando Asset 07. Return for debrief. Research continuation authorized. Rokara growled. They still think I'm theirs. Jake stared at the words. They never stopped watching. A long silence passed. Then Jake did something unexpected. He erased the message. Rokara blinked. You don't want answers? Jake shrugged. I already found the only one that matters. She tilted her head. And that is? That you're not property, he said. You're not an experiment. You're Rokara. She smiled, just slightly, then looked out the window at the stars. Suddenly, the radar blinked. One ship, tailing them at long range. But this one wasn't hostile. Its ID read, Nomad Echo 4. A recorded message began playing through the com. The voice was deep, old, and familiar. To the human who helped the Beast Queen rise, your name will not be forgotten. But know this, others watched you too, and some are not pleased. Rokara's eyes narrowed. New enemies, she said. Jake leaned back. Can we have 1 week without a galactic threat? They changed course, flying toward the outer drift, a dead zone of space known for silence and secrets. Jake didn't ask where they were going this time. He just flew. Rokara had given him purpose, and in return, he gave her trust. As they passed the edge of the last mapped sector, a new signal appeared, an old distress call, human-made, repeating endlessly. But this one had coordinates leading to a planet not on any official chart. Rokara stared at the screen. "That's where it began," she said. "The first lab." Jake looked at her. "You want to go back?" She nodded. "To end it properly," Jake smiled. "All right," he said. "Let's finish what someone else started." The ship entered the void beyond charts, stars flickering out one by one. Rokara rested her head on his shoulder, silent for a moment, then whispered, "You are more beast than you think, Jake Turner." Jake chuckled. "And you're more human than you want to admit." She didn't deny it. Instead, she smiled. Their final flight had begun, not to escape, not to survive, but to bring the truth to light. About war, about science, about how far people will go to control what they fear, and how two unlikely souls, one human, one beastborn, chose a different path, together.